All right. Well, hello and welcome. Welcome back to school for some of you. Some of you, I guess, never left. You were here for session A. Some of you I saw just a couple hours ago in 101C. I guess you get to see me all day also. But anyway, this is Stats 102B, Computation and Optimization for Statistics. This is our syllabus, and I guess we'll just go over a couple highlights of it, and then we'll dive into lecture and things of that nature. Okay, so this is me. I'm Miles Chen. You have my permission to call me by my first name, Miles. That's fine. If that feels weird to you, you can call me Professor Chen, Dr. Chen, whatever is fine. Okay. All right, let's talk about the course. So, we'll cover computation optimization for statistics. I take a machine learning approach to a lot of these kind of optimization and algorithms. And so, we're going to focus a lot on the actual optimization, I guess some of these machine learning algorithms themselves. And so we'll take a look at that. Okay. This is our meeting time. We meet at 11 to 1 in this classroom. Okay. Office hours. So this I'm embarrassed to admit a little bit, but I'm not great at email. I'm not great at written communication. Like, you can send me emails. I'll try to get back to you, but it also might take a really long time to get back to you, and it's nothing personal. It's just something I kind of struggle with. And so to kind of make up for that, I try to hold a lot of office hours. I'm, whatever issues you have, I'm happy to take care of them and address and things like that. So I have office hours. Just come sign in on Zoom, and we can chat. You need an extension for your homework or whatever, that's fine. After office hours or during office hours, I use email as kind of like written receipts to say, like, okay, this is to confirm that I granted you an extension on your homework or whatever, and so you have like a written record of whatever it is that we said we discussed in office hours. But yeah, you'll get a quicker response, that way via office hours. And so that's on Zoom. I'm on, this for the summer. I'm on campus just Tuesdays and Thursdays. Those are the days I teach, and those are the days I'm on campus. So I teach a class from 8 to 10. And then I have kind of like this hour break in between from 10 to 11. And then I teach this class from 11 to 1. And so if you want to meet in person, you can come before class, basically between 10 and 11. And we can talk in person. My office is upstairs. Maybe I'll post this information on Canvas as well. It's this building, the elevator right out there. Take it up to the 8th floor, directly across from the elevator. MS 8105. Okay, I'll put that information on Canvas as well. And so that'll, I guess, Tuesdays 10 to 11, and that's again the elevator just out that door. Take it up to the 8th floor, and I'm right there. Okay, and then this weekend I'm traveling to a conference. Okay, and my flight leaves Thursday afternoon. So I'm able to teach my Thursday morning class, but this class I'm going to have to pre-record, okay? So probably I'll record it like tomorrow or something, and then I'll post it. So I guess in 2 days we won't meet in person, okay? I got to pre-record. I'm attending a conference on R, our statistical language. It's over at Duke University. It's usually pretty cool because they're always kind of talking about the latest kind of trends and stuff, and the latest stuff is like all AI related and things like that. And anyway, I'm looking forward to it. That's kind of how I try to keep up to date with what's happening in the world. And yeah, R is still popular. I know there's Python, and I'm a big fan of Python as well. There's kind of at least in the data science community, I think it's not one or the other, but a lot of times things work together. At least among data scientists, definitely as a general purpose language, Python 100% is that. But as far as statistical models, machine learning, data science, I think R still has a lot of kind of uses and benefits. And so, there's Posit. They're the company behind RStudio and Positron and stuff. So anyway, all to say, this Thursday I'll be traveling. It's gonna be pre-recorded. Okay, this class we will have a midterm and a final. I'll talk about those as those dates approach. I just want to make sure I have this correct. Let's see, Thursday the 21st. Yeah, okay. Week 3. Okay, and then I've got homework dates. This is what we have. I think on Canvas, when I first published the class, it had imported like old dates and stuff, and it was wrong. So these are the dates we're going to go off the syllabus. I think I've got at least homework 1 dates correct on Canvas now, and on Gradescope it should be correct. So I apologize for if appearing different when it first got published. Okay, let's see, what else do we have? All right, our textbook. Okay, so unfortunately, as far as our textbook goes, I couldn't find a free textbook that I liked, and so this one, there's. It's not free, so you can get it from wherever you want. It's out there. Okay, and all right, and let's see. We'll have homework, and we got a midterm and final. I have to get Campus Wire set up. Campus Wire is our discussion forum, so I will get that set up. I think as far as this class goes with the homework and whatnot, I think the discussion forum is a useful thing. And so I do require discussion forum participation. And then lecture viewing quizzes. This one's a bit different. If you're in my other class, I have quizzes related to lecture, but they're like content-based. In here, I have quizzes related to lecture, but they have nothing to do with content. And I just give random letters out. And this is just to kind of make sure you are listening to whatever random letters I say. So, like, for example, our first one, today's lecture, I think. So it's just these random questions that have nothing to do with anything. But like question 1, the first answer is E. E as an elephant, so you want to jot this down somewhere. Okay, and if you're watching the video, jot it down somewhere and then fill this out at the end. But the first one's E, and I'll give you the other answers later on in the lecture. Okay, so these quizzes have nothing to do with the content, but it's just checking to make sure you are either here, and if you're not here in person, you watch the video. Okay, and that's how that works. And then I'll talk about the homework. And I have a bunch of details on the homework about like the format and make sure your output's visible and stuff like that. And this contributes to why my syllabus keeps growing and it's getting longer, because there's some technical issue with the homework and this, that, and so now my syllabus is way too long and whatnot. Okay, and then just general kind of policies and whatnot. Okay. I don't know, questions in general about course policies or anything like that? Okay. Oh, let me share a little bit about myself. I don't know, just indulge me for a second. Okay. So I teach statistics. This is my job, and I'm so grateful. I every time, if I think, have so many things to be thankful for. So teaching at UCLA is such a privilege and blessing. Like, I don't know you guys as students, but like, you guys are amazing. Okay, UCLA students are really great, and I'm so grateful. You know, I talked to other friends who are also in education, even higher education, or teaching at high schools and middle schools, and you know, I mean, a lot of them, I mean, they like their job enough to stay in it, but you know, so many of them also complain, you know, about their students. You know, it's a lot of kind of like kids these days type of things. And you know, I might have a student that gives me trouble, but overall, I'm so grateful because you guys, like, at your core, I think you love learning and you like academics and you like doing this. So this is great, right? Like we get along because we value things like that. Also, so I want to share just some pictures of my family, if you'll indulge me. This is, I have, oops. Okay, so this is my family. I'm happily married, and I've got 2 girls, 11 and 8. And then my younger one is here with me because school hasn't started. So I'm letting her play on my phone. But anyway, this was taken at a friend's wedding. And then I have the best dog in the world. I love him so much. Okay. His name is Firu. He's some kind of mix, I think King Charles Spaniel and Papillon. I don't know. Super affectionate, super great. And then against my better judgment, my girls also wanted a bunny. I guess they said yes. And so now we have Bun Bun, the rabbit over here. Well, anyway, okay, so that's that. Let's see. All right, let's talk about this class and let's get into it. And I got a bunch of stuff. If you were here for my 101C class, you're going to hear the same spiel in the beginning. What is it? Oh, welcome. Okay, so what is this class? This class, I think a lot of if you are studying statistics and data science, if that's your major, or maybe your major is like applied math or math of computation, or your undergraduate degree, you are, I truly believe, laying a foundation for whatever is coming next, whether it's your work, maybe grad school, whatever. You're gonna, I hope, continue learning, okay? Whether it's learning in an academic setting or learning on the job, applications or doing stuff, and it's gonna build off of whatever foundations you've built up during your undergrad and all of your education prior to this. And so as far as data science goes, there's kind of, I would say it's a merger or overlap of 3 kind of different skills and domains and things like that. And so you have coding skills, okay? Because our data science is kind of at the point where all of our data sets are big and complex enough that, the techniques to analyze them by hand, they're too big to do anything by hand. So we have to use a computer, and we want to communicate to the computer using code so that, we can be efficient in the way we have the computer handle our data, okay? Math and stats knowledge, definitely a theoretical component behind how we interact with the computer and, the applications and the algorithms that we're going to be applying. There's math and stats knowledge, and all of this gets applied to data that's coming from a certain field, right? A certain domain. So maybe the data is coming from the healthcare system. Maybe it's coming from the entertainment industry. Maybe it's coming from, finance or something. And you need to, whatever field that you're applying it in, you want to be familiar with that stuff, right? If some of you want to do sports analytics, okay? Because data analytics and stuff is huge in sports now. And so if you want to analyze, like, say, baseball data, you have to be familiar with the baseball game, right? You can't come in with no no baseball knowledge, right? So you need domain expertise. Otherwise, you are not going to be valuable. All right. And so Drew Conway, individual in the data science community, kind of gave this Venn diagram, and so this is the overlap of the three is data science, domain, subject matter knowledge, plus kind of your math and stats knowledge. That kind of leads to traditional research. Okay, if you're familiar with the domain and you have coding skills, or maybe this can just be, now that we have AI, anybody can develop coding and hacking skills, right? We have like vibe coding, where you just ask the AI to do stuff for you, okay? But if you don't have this kind of math and stats knowledge, he calls this the danger zone. And I agree that you might be applying, right? Like, you can have some code and some package run something without really knowing what its limitations, what assumptions you're making. When you run this command, basically everything has some kind of built-in assumptions behind it. And if you're not familiar with those, you might be doing something completely incorrectly, right? But if you are able to kind of code, you have the math stats knowledge. We might call that machine learning, and that's kind of a lot of what this class is going to be looking at, right? I am not able, in this class, I'm not able to give you the substantive expertise, because there are just too many fields to which you can apply data science, right? I can't cover all of the nuances of all of the different industries and sectors of the world where you're going to be gathering data. So that's going to be up to you. You're going to become familiar with it on the job. Okay, you get hired in some public policy place, you're going to learn about all of those things. You get hired somewhere else, you're going to learn, okay, the subject matter things, right? Wherever you find a job, like, do your best to become an expert. Do your best to become an expert in whatever field it is, so that when you apply all of this stuff, you can be, do good data science. Okay, so anyway, what is this class? So this class is going to really kind of be this part, the coding and the math and stats knowledge, okay? I'm assuming you're all comfortable enough with writing code, and this course is going to focus a lot on kind of the algorithms themselves, okay? So meanwhile, like my 101C class, which I'm also teaching in the summer, kind of complements this class, and that one's going to be a little bit more of the techniques and some of the practical considerations you have when dealing with like kind of messy data. And this one is going to be a little bit more on like how the algorithms themselves work. So like once you have data that you're comfortable with, so all of the data that we're looking at here is all going to be kind of clean and organized and set up in nice little columns. And once you have that, how does the machine learning algorithm work? How does it what is it doing? What are the steps it's taking in order to produce this prediction? Okay. So kind of a lot of your homework assignments will be to write like clunky manual code that implements the algorithms themselves, okay, in this class. Versus like in my 101C class, we'll just use the package, okay, the software that you want to run k-nearest neighbors. There's already a function in R called knn, and it's going to run k-nearest neighbors, okay, and it's going to do that. In this class, you're going to write your own, like by hand, well, not by hand, but like write it yourself. Like, okay, we're going to calculate distances, then we're going to sort the distances, and we're going to pick the k nearest neighbors, and you're going to do this yourself. And it'll give you kind of like I think a greater appreciation for this stuff. I don't know. It's kind of like, I I don't know, in this class, it's like you're building the engine, okay? And then the other class, it's like you're driving the car, right? And I think that the two kind of go together. But that's what we're looking at here. You're going to write these things. Obviously, when you go working, you're not going to be writing k-nearest neighbors algorithm by hand yourself, okay? That's, you're not going to be building an engine by hand. You'll do it at a factory or something. But so you'll use but I think writing it by hand and understanding these algorithms yourself, I think, will give you a deeper understanding. That's what this class is going to be about. Okay, so a lot of these concepts that we look at in machine learning, we're going to look at these driving things in optimization, like loss functions that we're trying to optimize. We got likelihood functions. We got the way we kind of check and evaluate cross-validation and stuff like that. And we'll cover a handful of different machine learning models. There's tons of models out there. And we'll just look at, there's only a selection. There's only so much we can cover in 6 weeks, so that this is what we'll be looking at. Okay, so I talked a little bit about this, my other class 101C that I'm also teaching in the summer. But again, this one's going to be focused a little bit more on like the nuts and bolts of what's happening inside the algorithm, and the other one is going to be more like the applications, practical considerations. Okay. This is the stats and data science major. We'll just skip over that. These are just descriptions of some of the other classes and how they all kind of fit together. But there is one kind of thing that I do want to contrast. And so this, so I do want to talk a little bit. The statistics field was born out, kind of came to be at a time where data was very, very expensive to collect. A lot of applications were like in agriculture, in that they wanted to figure out what was the best kind of combination of fertilizer and watering techniques and pest control methods and stuff like that that's going to help yield a good amount of crops. And so this, collecting one data point represented like applying these techniques, applying fertilizer and stuff for like an entire season, and then you harvest your crops and you get like one data point, right? And so, and you might have to like tend to like a bunch of fields. Okay, hang on. Let me side quest over here. There is, I want to say Latin square for field. I don't know what I'm searching here. Design of experiments, ANOVA. Okay, let's see if there's an image of this. Oh, yes, here it is. Okay, so this is like back in the day where this is the agricultural application where they wanted to test out different conditions for farming. And you can see like how they set it up, and you can see how the crops grew a little bit different. So, how much work was this to grow this field and harvest and all of this? This is a lot of work. And how many data points do you get? You get what? 25 data points here? Okay. And so a lot of statistical methods, like if you take 101B, I don't know, have you guys taken that class? Okay, right? Design of experiments. Did you have to do like the island, or I don't know, did you do some kind of practical thing where you gathered your own data maybe? Okay. Huh? You did the island, right? And it's like painful. It's like so frustrating because you got to wait like 6 minutes to get one data point, right? And that's just a small taste of the frustration of doing like this kind of research, right? Medical research. You have to like do all of these clinical trials, and then like you get one data point and it costs you like $20,000 to get this one data point. And so that whole class is about like, how do you set up your experiment so you can maximize the amount of information you can get out of these 25 data points that cost $500,000 to collect, okay? Because it'd be really sad if you spend $500,000 and you get 25 data points and there's nothing useful that you can do, right? So that's what those classical approaches did. Okay. Now we're on kind of the opposite end where we have so much data, right? Like everything that's like you do on the internet and you're on your phone, it's like generating data, right? Like every store you go to, they're like, download our application, download our app and save, 3%, 20% off your next purchase or something. You're like, oh, okay, great. Terms and conditions. We're going to be collecting data and we're going to be analyzing it. Okay. But you just get so much data now. And how do we wade through that? Okay. And so now we need different techniques. And that's kind of this other side, right? That's the more data science. And that's what we're looking at. And that's, I think both are still super important. Both are applications of statistics. Medical research still going to be very much driven by like 101B, design of experiments, because those experiments are costly to run. Okay. Other stuff, especially anytime of like big data collection, we need other techniques here. Okay. In this class, we sit and we do lecture. I'm proud of the lectures I give, but the real learning happens when you do your homework. Okay. It's like anything else in life that you're trying to learn, like playing a sport, playing an instrument, like the practice, right? Doing that kind of practice and doing it yourself, that's going to be the important part. And so, the homework that I assign, that's where I believe that the real learning happens, okay? When I make homework assignments, it's always a challenge finding the right amount of like challenge and difficulty. You don't want to make it too easy. You don't want to make it too hard. I think we kind of have it right, okay? They might tend to be on the harder side. That's the feedback, but I think that's good, right? I want to have things that stretch you a bit, okay? The temptation, okay, especially with like AI and you can probably, like almost any of these things, you can search online either for the answers or you can just copy and paste the question into AI and it'll give you an answer, okay? And my encouragement is don't do that, okay? Of course I'm going to say that. But that struggle, that's a really important part, okay? And we have an intuitive understanding of this, like when you go to the gym to work out, right? When you lift weights at the gym, you understand that the goal is not to get the weights picked up off the ground, okay? It's that process of lifting weights that is tiring and exhausting, that's going to make you stronger. You go to the gym to like build your muscle. And so, and again, you don't want to do things that are just super easy all the time. If you just pick up a 1 pound weight, okay, and you say, oh, this is easy, I can do like 50 reps of these, okay? That's not going to help you get any stronger, all right? To get a good workout, you want to find the right amount that's like a stretch for you, right? It's going to be difficult and you want to do a few reps of, something that's hard and you go home exhausted, you rest and you come back stronger and then, what used to be hard is now, becomes less hard and you get stronger that way. Same thing with learning, okay? If you only do exercises and things that are super easy for you, your brain's not gonna bother like doing the hard work of forming new neuron connections and things like that, okay? And so, if it's challenging, that's a good sign, okay? Struggle through that challenge, you'll get so much more out of the course in life, when you push yourself to do the learning activity. And honestly, this is why I am so happy to be at UCLA, because I think all of you have an understanding of this at an intuitive level. That's why you're here. You get it, right? Like maybe some of your classmates didn't bother with it, right? And everybody has different giftings, and I don't want to poo-poo anybody else, but as far as the learning, like you understand this, right? But at the same time, we have this technology, this AI, that is able to do so much. And every day, it's like every few months, like a new version's released, and that can do even more and more complicated stuff. And, I'm very much fascinated by AI and the discussion around AI and what's going to happen. And I don't know what's going to happen, right? There's a lot of kind of fear of like, oh, AI is going to take our jobs. I don't think it's going to completely take all of our jobs, right? But in order to make yourself valuable, you want to be able to do things that AI is not good at, right? And I like to think of learning as kind of this pyramid here, right? Where like everything kind of builds off of stuff you learn, foundations and stuff, right? So in grade school and high school and whatever, like you learn arithmetic and basic math, okay? Right? So grade school, like you did well there, and then like you went to high school or whatever, and you learned things like calculus. And then as now you're in college, okay? And now we're teaching stuff on top of this, okay? And so you have things like machine learning, all right? Some of this stuff at this, okay? And the thing is that right now, okay, AI is really good at doing all of this stuff, okay? And it's even pretty good at like this kind of stuff, right? As you like, there's going to be like complex stuff at the top, right? Like this is, I'm writing complex, and we got like neural networks and large language models and complicated stuff, and probably AI is not so good at this, right? I believe there's still going to be, as much as AI improves, I do believe there's still going to be limitations to what AI is capable of. And even if AI does achieve this concept of general intelligence, just like anything else, like there's still going to be some special things that humans are going to be better at. And I think that's going to be the case. And obviously, to make yourself valuable, okay, if AI is all good at this stuff, you want to be able to like master this stuff, right? But, and you might be like, well, why don't you just teach me this stuff? Well, I can't teach you this stuff unless you have a good foundation of this, right? You can't learn calculus unless you have a good foundation here, okay? And so the temptation comes is that like, yeah, AI, it's climbing this, it's pretty good at this stuff. Honestly, like I give you your homework assignments, I give you, you probably can ask AI to do it, and it'll probably do a good job. And I won't know the difference, okay? Actually, I don't even do the grading here, so. But the thing is that if you have the AI do this, you are missing out on establishing your foundation, okay? And so when you're like, okay, I want to make myself valuable and learn all of this stuff here, okay? If you don't have a good foundation, it's not gonna go well, right? So yeah, it's tempting, okay? But I just have to encourage you to really try to establish the foundation yourself. Try to understand it yourself. So the things that you learn in the future, right? When you work, okay, you're going to learn more complicated things that build off of the stuff you learned here, and you want to be able to do it, and you want to have a good foundation upon which to build. Okay, yeah, I don't know. This is the part that worries me a little bit, because I do have like teacher friends who teach middle school and high school, and it's like, I don't know if you have younger siblings or anything, but the students who overly rely on AI, they are not establishing these solid foundations themselves. That, I don't know. This is again, every time I say this, I always feel like I'm the old man yelling at the sky. Like AI is here, and it's not going away, okay? And you should be learning how to use AI, okay? Don't like pretend it doesn't exist, okay? But don't become so reliant on it that you can't do any of the thinking yourself, okay? Yeah, question.
For the textbook, will the first edition?
Well, the first edition, I think the first edition is probably good enough.
Well, like in terms of deciding the problems from the textbook, do you like put them in the?
Yeah, I'll put the homework. The problems themselves are in the homework, I think. No, I think so. Okay. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, AI is here. Like you should learn how to use it. Okay. But I don't know. We don't have a class. We don't have a class on like how to search for things on the internet. But like you guys know, right? You know, like you've learned this. Okay. We don't have a class on like how to use AI, but you should be using AI to some degree and become comfortable with like how do you write good prompts to get what you need. And it's certainly going to be, I think, a tool that everyone or a lot of people are going to be using. But again, don't let it take away your learning and understanding of foundational things, right? Like all of you learned basic math, even though calculators existed, like you learned how to do multiplication and stuff to kind of establish a sense of numeric literacy, right? Okay. And okay. So yeah, indulge me here. I also give this spiel on grades in life. Okay. And the reason why I think the temptation to use AI and things and take little shortcuts here is I think sometimes students get the objective of the course mixed up. Okay. It's not that like, I don't think it's because like students are like lazy or something and they just want to cheat or something. I'm not so pessimistic about that. But if you believe the goal of the course is to get a good grade, okay, then, and rather than the learning, right? If the primary goal is the grade and learning is like a secondary objective, then it's going to be really tempting to use AI or copy or plagiarize or something, just because that's like an easy way to get the good grade. But the goal of the class is learning, right? And that's going to require the work and whatnot. And I think the reason why it can be so easy to mix up the goals of the course, because I was guilty of this, all right, is that, I had an unhealthy relationship with grades, and I so valued grades, okay? Like in high school, like I was a good student. I got good grades, and I don't know, it feels good, right? Like you study hard for a test, you get a good grade, it feels good. You're like, yes, this like my work paid off. And I developed an unhealthy relationship with grades where I allowed grades to like define who I was. I allowed my academic achievements to be kind of like my identity, right? I wasn't a star athlete. I think no surprise there. I wasn't, I had friends, but I wasn't like super popular or anything like that. But I said, that's okay. I don't need to go to parties. I can do well on exams and do tests and things like that. And so I had, I allowed, kind of grades to define who I am or who I was. And then, I went to college and I had gotten into like my dream school. I had gotten into Caltech. And when I got there, it was so hard. And my fall quarter, I got my first C ever, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then winter quarter, they were also quarter system. Winter quarter, I got my first D. And then spring quarter, my freshman year, I like failed multiple classes, and I became depressed. And I thought like, what, because I had tied so much of my own kind of self-value to my grades, when I lost the grades and I couldn't get good grades, I didn't see value in myself, right? And it took this kind of painful experience where I actually, I dropped out of Caltech, I transferred to another school. and it took that painful experience for me to be able to separate myself from my grades, separate my sense of self from this, and so I think I developed a healthier relationship and perspective on like where our value as people come from, and it's not our academic achievements, it's not going to be our professional achievements, it's not going to be our our income and title and things like that. But there's as people, like, and it's cheesy for me to say, but I truly believe this, like we are capable of love and having relationships and bringing goodness into the world, not just by getting grades and money and things like that. And so I don't know where you are in your life, and maybe you have a healthy relationship with grades, maybe you don't, maybe it's just one of those things that's there. But yeah, I just want to say your grades do not define you. And I think if you recognize that the grades are not the most important thing, that is also going to, reduce, like when you feel like, when you are tempted to use AI or to, cheat or something like that, your brain is basically saying the grade is more important than the learning, or the grade is more important than my own kind of integrity and things like that. And that's, I think if you feel that, it's good to take a step back and just evaluate, why do I feel like I want to do it this way? Okay. I also like to talk a little bit about work-life balance. So again, just indulge me here. Broadly speaking, I think there's kind of three big categories we can put our time and energy into. We can put our time and energy into work, which includes school and academics, but also like actual work where you're like making money and things like that, other professional obligations. We can put our time and energy into relationships with friends, family, or a romantic partner. And then we can put time and energy into ourselves, taking care of physical self, or mental health, or our spiritual health. And the truth is we only have 24 hours in a day, and we cannot give, it is impossible to give 100% to everything, okay? Some things will get more time and attention, and other things will get less time and attention. And I believe you can have a good work-life balance by finding satisfaction, like making choices and finding satisfaction by accepting the natural consequences of what you choose to deprioritize, right? So in general, the more time and energy you put into something, the more you're going to get out of that thing. And if you neglect something, or you put less time and energy, like that part of your life is going to dwindle or wither a little bit. And if you can say, yes, I am deliberately making this choice to put less time over here, and I am okay with this part of my life not flourishing as much, I think you can find kind of satisfaction with your work-life balance, okay? This is just a silly example, with like relationships and stuff, where, you might start off with kind of a group of, you might have like your circle of friends, and you spend a lot of time together with your friends, and you're happy with that. And then one day you get involved with a romantic partner, right? And so now you're spending a lot of time with your romantic partner, your romantic relationship, and that aspect of your life is flourishing and developing, and you're spending less time with your original group of friends, okay? The natural thing that's going to happen is you're going to get closer to your romantic partner, and you're going to be not as close as you used to be to your original group of friends. And it might come to a point where one day your original group of friends, they go off and do an activity without you, okay? And it's not that they're like trying to get revenge or anything. It's just, that's just naturally what happens, okay? When you don't spend as much time with some people, you're not going to be as close as you used to be. And but you can say, hey, you know what? I'm okay. I'm okay with this change in my life because now I have this relationship, romantic relationship that I'm very happy with. And I'm not upset, right? It's like we're in a different life stage and things change, right? Same kind of things can happen at work, And, at work, you can say, like, I'm going to spend all of my hours at work, right? And I'm going to neglect my personal life, okay? And that's okay. If that's the right decision for you at that time, totally fine, okay? Or you might say, hey, you know what? My personal life is still really important. I'm not going to spend as much time at work, and that's also fine. The company may or may not reward you accordingly, right? They might say, like, hey, this person spent more time and they're going to move up the ladder or whatever, who knows, okay? I also say self-care is important. Don't forget to take care of yourself, okay? Make sure you get sleep. Make sure you eat well. Make sure you do things that you find enjoyable, that bring joy to your life. And I say this sincerely. It's not just some platitude, okay? What I mean is that there might be a moment, okay, where, like the homework is due, and but I don't know, your friend is in need, and you have to help your friend out, okay? And you have to make a choice, like, okay, I can spend time taking care of my friend, or I can spend time working on my assignment, or maybe you just need a day off. I can spend time to like allow myself to rest and recover, or I can push through and do my homework. And I want you to feel okay making the choice that's not your homework, right? I want you to feel okay like making the choice to help your friend or making the choice to take the day off, okay? The natural consequence is you're not going to finish your homework and you're going to lose points on your homework, okay? That's just what's going to happen. But I want you to say, like, all right, that's a choice that I'm making, and I'm okay with not getting 100% on my homework because I've chosen to choose something else, right? And it feels weird where your teacher's like, it's okay. I mean, you're going to lose points on your homework, but I want you to be okay with that kind of decision, right? And then, all right, again, forgive my old man yelling at sky thing. There's one thing I want you to be mindful of, okay? So I'm a big proponent of doing things that are fun and entertaining and things that make you happy, okay? But there's also like apps on our phone and certain things that are just designed to keep us hooked and addicted, and where we're just like scrolling forever. We're just watching video after video after video, and it's easy for like it's like 10 o'clock, you start looking at it, and then before you know it, it's 2 a.m., right? And you're like, oh man, what happened? Like, how did I spend 4 hours on this thing? And you have no recollection of like any of the actual content that has like flown by, right? It's just kind of like in the moment, it's like fun to kind of keep scrolling, but then it's like, try to remember like anything in those things, and it's like you just have like little fragments of memories. It's like nothing actually meaningful and substantial came out of that time that disappeared, right? And that's because these apps, unfortunately, because of data science, have been designed to be maximally, like they've optimized the user addiction, right? Like they're basically the thing that they're trying to maximize, which, we're going to learn algorithms to try to like maximize and optimize things. The thing they're trying to maximize is basically like user engagement. Like how long can we keep somebody coming back? And they figured out the exact kind of like, okay, we can feed this video and this video and this video and these things, and we just can show ads and we can keep them on our platform and make more money this way. But the user, and I say this like having firsthand experience, like I don't gain anything. Like at the end of this, I'm not happier. Like it was entertaining, it ate up my time, but I'm not happier. It's 2 a.m. I'm going to get a terrible night's sleep now, and that's not good, right? If you are doing something great and wonderful and you're staying up till 2 a.m., like, I think that's great. Like, some of my best memories from college are like when I was hanging out with friends and we were just having a great time, enjoying one another's company, into the late hours. It's 2 a.m., you go to sleep, you have a terrible night's sleep, but like I came back, like I was happy. I felt like I was I had friends and community and all of that. Like, it's great. That's okay. Like, losing sleep so that you have, you're filled with life and love. I think that's great. Losing sleep to just scroll on your phone, not so great. Okay. So just be mindful of that. I don't want to be like the one lecturing you on apps and stuff. Like, these things exist, but again, designed just to be kind of addictive. All right, let's get into actual content. And so let's talk about, models and machine learning here. Okay, so this is the Wikipedia definition of machine learning. It says, machine learning is the scientific study of algorithms and statistical models that computer systems use to effectively perform a specific task without using explicit instructions, relying on patterns and inference. That's a decent definition, but it's very it's big and it's a lot to kind of parse through. The idea here is this, okay? We have lots of data. We try to fit models to our data, okay? And even though we call it machine learning, people still are involved in a lot of the decisions regarding how to specify the model. There's these models have like hyperparameters and things, and deciding like what algorithm to use. All of that's still decided by people, but as far as like what is the final kind of coefficients and things like that, that is handled by the algorithm itself. Okay, so like when you fit a linear regression model, right, finding the slope and the intercept, okay, it's not you drawing a line and eyeballing this. Okay, you say we are following the rule of minimizing our sum of squared errors, and if we follow that rule to minimize the sum of squared errors, this is going to be the slope and the intercept that we should pick. Okay, versus a human would just kind of like, you have these knobs to say like, all right, I want to pick the right slope, or I want to pick the right intercept, or something like that. Okay. So what is a model? A model is a simplified representation of something complex. So this is a model airplane. A real airplane, very complicated, okay? And this is just a little toy, simplified representation, but it still gives us a sense of what the airplane looks like, okay? And a statistical model, similarly, is a simplified representation of some complicated real-world process, right? So there's a real-world process that produces data, okay? How tall is somebody, okay? There's a lot of factors that play into how tall someone's height is, right? Genetics, nutrition, all kinds of things. Like genetics is this nebulous term, right? Except it's like maybe we can trace it down to like, oh, this gene, this sequence in the genome corresponds, like it's complicated. But we can just say, oh, you're all right, let's simplify this and just say, all right, let's take into account. So the actual genetics, all of these chromosomes and genes coming together, we can just say, all right, let's just take into account the father's height and the mother's height. Like, let's take into account like parents' height, okay? And that's like, that simplifies this concept of genetics, okay? And that's basically what we're doing, right? We're saying a statistical model, there's like the real world process, complicated. We're going to simplify that and just say, hey, let's take into account parents' height, okay? And that's basically what we're doing. So a statistical model is a simplified representation of a complicated real-world process that generates data. So the process that generates data is complicated, many things that ultimately determine the outcome. Statistical model is going to be a simplified version of that relationship. It's only going to include a subset of some of the variables, right? There might be thousands, millions of variables that actually play a role in the actual real-life process. And we're going to just say, hey, these are the 12 that are most important, or something like that, okay? And then for everything else, we just say, hey, there's an error term that covers everything that we didn't include, okay? All models are wrong, some are useful. So as far as statistical models go, we can use them to make predictions, or we could try to use them to gain understandings between relationships. I call this part the understanding of relationships between variables. Sometimes I call that inference, okay? But these are kind of our two kind of primary goals. We want to either make good predictions or we want to try to understand some of the relationships going on. And a lot of times we have to choose like which of these goals are more important. Is it more important to make predictions, or is it more important to kind of understand the relationships? It seems these days everything is kind of leaning more towards predictions. All of the models we're choosing these days like specialize in making predictions. But understanding relationships, I would say the classical methods, like in the medical research and stuff like that, those are still very important. Okay, this is an example coming from our textbook. We are looking at some data from the Olympics 100-meter men's track and field, the one where they run. What do we call this, right? Athletics, track and field. They're running 100 meters, and I don't know how old you guys were when like Usain Bolt like broke all of these world records and stuff. I don't know if you had got to see him live on TV and stuff. It was like amazing. Okay, and I don't know who's the fastest today. I don't know, but it's always fun, right? The 100-meter thing. So anyway, our data set keeps track of like what was the gold medal winning time at the Olympics. Okay. And they tracked this over like the history of like, the Olympics from, I think the first one in modern Olympics was like 1896 up to, I think the data goes up to like 2008 or 2012 or something like that. Okay. And, in real world, there's a whole bunch of different factors that factor into it. Okay. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a very simple model, and our simple model is basically, the winning time gets faster. Okay, so in 1896, the winning time was 12 seconds. Okay, and then in 2012, the winning time was under 10 seconds, right? Like 9 point something seconds, right? Breaking the 10-minute barrier was like a big deal, or 10-second barrier for the 100-meter dash was a big deal. And the very simple model just says like, okay, yeah, in 1900, the winning time was around 11 seconds, and as the years have gone by, the winning time has gotten faster and faster and faster. Okay, obviously this cannot continue on forever. Okay, we can't keep, it's not that in the year 2100 we're going to have a negative winning time or something like that, or I guess that would be like the year 3000 or something. Okay, we're not going to have negative times. Obviously it's going to reach somewhere, but at least for this data set, maybe we can fit some kind of line here. Okay. So we're going to just kind of start at the very, very, very basic of just fitting a straight line, okay? And you already are familiar with how to fit a straight line linear model, but we're going to start here and show how we can think about it as like a machine learning problem, okay? How do we, the idea of having a loss function and all of these different things. So our model is going to be something like this. Race times have gotten faster as the years have gone by, okay? And so if we know the year where the Olympics was held, we can try to predict the winning race time, all right? And a linear model implies that the amount we adjust our prediction is going to be the same, right? So let's say I predict the speed improves by 5/100ths of a second, okay? 0.05 when I go from 1920 to 1924, okay? The linear model says that relationship holds the same over all of time. So from 2000 to 2004, we're also going to improve by 5/100ths of a second, okay? And you guys know this. But not everything follows that, right? Sometimes you have these exponential relationships or these, quadratic relationships or square root relationships or things like that, right? The inverse square relationship where, going from 1 to 2, you multiply, it changes by, you add 10, but then going from 11 to 12, you add only 3, okay? So if the amount isn't constant, then it's not a linear model, okay? Okay, so the linear model is going to fit a straight line, And as far as fitting the model goes, that means we have to figure out what the parameters of this line are. All lines are, in algebra can be defined by a slope and an intercept. And so the two parameters that we're going to try to figure out will be the slope and the intercept. Okay, so fitting a model is the process of estimating what parameters we need for a model. And in this case, we just have two. Okay. And when we do something in machine learning, we have to have a definition for what best is, okay? Because we might have two kind of competing models, and you need an objective way of saying this one is better than the other one, okay? And it has to kind of boil down to a single number so you can kind of compare them. All right, you don't want to have like two different things going on at the same time. Okay, so like who is the smarter student? Okay, that's such a stupid question to ask in the first place. But like who is the smarter student? And you might have like, okay, this person got this score in chemistry, and this person and got this score in math, and this score in history, and things like that. And if you have like 5 different subjects that you're evaluating on, it's not going to be useful, right? You can't compare 2 different people because maybe this person did well on chemistry but poorly on history, and this person did well on history and poorly on chemistry, right? If it's complicated like that, how do you evaluate it? So you have to boil things down to a single number, right? And that's unfortunately where the GPA comes from, right? We just say, all right, well, let's have some way to average in different grades and stuff together down to a single number. And now we can say not who's the smarter student, but who has the higher GPA. And that's going to just have it's a single dimensional thing, right? So we're boiling it down to a single number. And that's basically what we're trying to do here. Which line does a better job of fitting our data? Okay, you might have a line that right? Is it this line? Is it some other line that points in it? Stay listen, right? Like, is it this line that does best, or is it something that does a little bit different, right? There's different potential lines that we can fit. Okay, different slopes, different intercepts, and we have to say like, okay, this is how we are going to define. We have to decide how we're going to define what the best fitting line is. Okay, what is our best fitting line? And so you already know all of this, but the way we define the best fitting line is we measure the residuals, right? We measure the vertical distance from the actual data point and what the fitted line is, and we square all of those residuals and we add them up, okay? Or we take the average of them. Okay, that's how we've defined the best fitting line. Okay, did you guys ever talk about the minimum absolute deviation? Right? Because I don't know, maybe you wondered like, why do we square these things, right? What if we took the absolute value instead? Okay, if you took the absolute value instead, your quote, if you said, hey, I want the line that minimizes the sum of the absolute values, not the sum of the squares, but I want the line that minimizes the sum of the absolute values. If you do that, you'll get a different line, okay? And there might be some applications where you might prefer that, okay? We often choose sum of squared residuals. There's a lot of reasons and properties that make sum of squared residuals, but there could be, what I'm saying is that how you define what is the best, and here we are saying the best is the one that minimizes the sum of the squares, okay? But someone else could just make as much of a claim and say the best is going to be the one that not minimizes the sum of squares, but minimizes the sum of absolute values, okay? And I don't know, someone else could say, I want to minimize the sum of the, cubes, or the absolute values of the cubes, or something like that. And actually, maybe that exists somewhere, I don't know. But like, like that could do it, okay? Right? So we have to define the objective function, right? We also call this the loss function or the cost function, because here we want to minimize it, and generally we want to minimize our loss, we want to minimize our costs and things like that. But we're going to say the one that is best is the one that minimizes the sum of the squared residuals, right? So that's our objective function. Oh, okay, wait, hang on. Second, before I forget, you have to remind me every now and then. Okay, the sum of the second answer for today's lecture quiz. Second answer is the letter D. D as in dog is your answer number 2. Is D. D as in dog. Okay. So a lot of our machine learning models, including linear regression, is a lot of these machine learning models, the way we fit our parameters is we try to either minimize a function or we maximize a function, okay? And so because we're trying to minimize or trying to maximize, these are basically optimization problems, okay? So optimization is all about minimizing something or maximizing something. You're trying to optimize. And this is still remains a tricky thing, because basically all of the most complicated neural networks and things like that just have some kind of optimization function that they're trying to maximize, some kind of reward function that they're trying to maximize, or a cost function or a loss function that they're trying to minimize, okay? And so, these apps that are designed to keep you addicted, their reward function is basically how much time has the user spent on our app, okay? And they want to, they do whatever they can to figure out how to do this, right? Companies, it's like maximize profits and things like that, okay? So we're going to kind of start here. I know you're all familiar with linear regression, but you're going to be just some concrete examples here. Okay. I'm going to start pushing or changing the notes in my slides to match the textbook's notation. So, this first course in machine learning, it uses certain notation, so I'm going to start matching that. Basically, so I said, okay, the difference between the actual value and the predicted value, a lot of times we say is the difference between y and y hat, okay? And in our textbook, the actual value is called t as in target value, okay? And then the value predicted, the predicted value y hat, is going to be the result of whatever our function is, okay? We have a function where the input is x, okay? So if the nth observation of x goes into our function, the function is defined by these parameters, the intercept and the slope. W0 is our intercept, W1 being our slope, W for like weights, okay, which is just kind of a general term for some unknown parameter. So our function, it's a function where x, the nth observation of x is our input. We have parameters W0 and W1, and so this is going to be the value predicted by that as the result of this function, okay? So instead of y minus y hat, or y sub n minus y hat sub n, it's going to be t sub n, our target value, minus f on x sub n, okay? And we square that, and then our textbook likes to use 1 over n, the mean squared error, rather than the sum of squared residuals, okay? But same idea, right? This is okay. Okay, and then another very common loss function is the root mean squared error. It's the same thing, mean squared error, but you take the square root of that. And the only reason why we might deal with root mean squared error, like we see root mean squared error, and I shouldn't say the only reason, but then your errors are in the same unit as the original thing, right? So like if your output is like cost, like money, right? $100, $150, and you're trying to predict how much this thing is going to be, the value of the thing, the sum of squared residuals, your residuals, the units on the residuals would be square dollars, okay, dollars squared. And I don't know what dollars squared is. Like, I can't picture in my head, I don't, does somebody have a good representation of what a square dollar is, like in our head? I can't picture it, right? Like square centimeters, yes, that makes sense. Square dollars, I have no idea, okay? I can't picture that in my head. So root mean squared, like then your root mean squared error is like $17, like that's fine, okay? So square root of the squares, right? Like that's that. Okay, so all right, anyway, here's our linear model. We have two parameters, the intercept W0, the slope W1. Our prediction is going to be W0 plus W1 xn. And so here we can expand all of this out. Okay, so we're going to do some math. And we say, okay, this is our loss function. We want to minimize the root, the mean squared error. So we have our target value, T sub n, and we're going to subtract off the value predicted, which is going to be the intercept plus the slope times x. I'm going to plug that in here, okay? And basically, this, what we're trying to do is we're trying to find, okay, the set of values, W0 and W1, okay, are the values that we are going to use based on our data. Okay, so we have a data set where we have the target values and the input values, and we're going to pick the W0 and W1 so that this expression is minimized. That's what argmin, right? So we're trying to find the W0 and the W1 that's going to minimize this expression. So how do we do this? Okay, well, we'll expand this out. All right, so, you know, you have to do algebra. I forget what it's called. With FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. Is that, you know, when you expand out, it's this polynomial thing, right? So anyway, you do this. And then how do you minimize this function? You have two parameters and you're trying to find the minimum of this. So you take the partial derivative with respect to W0, you take the partial derivative with respect to W1, you set those equal to 0 because you want to find where the partial derivatives are equal to 0. That will correspond to a critical point. And in this case, because it's a convex surface, it's going to correspond to the minimum. So you want to find where the derivatives are equal to 0, and that's going to correspond to the minimum. Okay, I'm skipping over all of the math. Okay, that I think it's derived in the textbook. Okay, and you can kind of follow through it, but this is like reminiscent of like Calc 2, your multivariate calculus class. You take the partial derivatives and you solve. So anyway, the partial derivative of the loss function. So that's what this dl with respect to W1, our intercept, our slope, okay? The partial derivative of this is equal to this, is this, and then the partial derivative with respect to W0 is equal to this. You set these partial derivatives equal to 0, and you solve for W0 and W1, and that will be the result that minimizes your loss function, okay? And so we use calculus. It's a solved problem now, okay? And so, you know, if you have data and you say, hey, this is how we're going to define the best function, ordinary least squares, you'll get your slope and intercept by following this process, okay? Now, because we're dealing with a whole bunch of observations, okay, we have these loss summation signs, right? Because we have to calculate it for our first observation, then for a second observation, and third, and all the way up to our nth observation. We have to add up all of these things, okay? And having these summation signs can become a little bit annoying, okay? So now we use the language of linear algebra, or the notation of linear algebra, because when you do multiplication, when you multiply matrices in linear algebra, or you do like a dot product or an inner product or things like that, the summation is implicit, okay? Like when you do an inner product of vectors, you're multiplying all of the terms together and then you're summing them together. So we can kind of get get rid of the summation sign, we're not getting rid of, like, summation is inherent to the process, but we can get rid of the summation sign and things like that. If it's been a while since you've done linear algebra, I am a big fan of this playlist and a big fan of this channel, 3 Blue 1 Brown. I'm sure you guys have all seen 3 Blue 1 Brown videos by now, right? Like, no? Maybe? Okay. It's like, all right, so I spend a lot of time on YouTube, and this is like one of the best channels, all right? It's like by far like one of the best math channels, okay? There's a bunch of like academic channels that I like, but anyway, as far as like math channels, this is like the best, and the author has created, Grant has created a playlist on linear algebra, and it's really great. Okay, so anyway, we'll do that. So now we'll do the same thing, ordinary least squares regression with matrix notation. If you've taken 100C, okay, have you guys taken that? Yes? No? Some of you? Okay. If you've taken it, sorry, you've seen all of this before. And if you haven't taken it, this is just like your crash course, just so that we can talk through the notation, okay? So we're going to put everything into matrix form, and we're going to work through all of this, okay? So we're going to define the parameters that we want. Our intercept and our slope, W0 and W1, go into this matrix W. One observation, okay, in order for us to kind of combine this, because we want the intercept plus the slope times x, I'm going to take the nth observation of x, and I'm going to kind of basically bind it with 1. I don't know. I can't remember the name. Okay, we bind it with the value 1 here, and that way I can do kind of this this product, okay, between w and x, w transpose xn, and that will be equivalent to having our predicted value for our nth observation of x. Okay, so we put this into matrix form, and then we are going to do all of our n observations, and we'll have a big matrix X, okay? So not just vector, okay? This is the vector X, the nth vector of X, but now we're gonna have a big matrix X, and so basically we're gonna have a column of 1s, and then all of our X values, X1, X2, blah, 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 through that. So this is this, okay? And then all of our actual values, the target values, is just gonna be in this vector T, and it's going to be T1, T through, up to Tn, okay? And then this loss function that we had back here, okay? All of this, the sum of the squared errors here, okay? Where, we added up for the first term, second term, third term, whatever, that can be written in this form, T minus xw transpose, T minus xw. So let me just kind of illustrate that. So if I do x times w, okay, x times w, this is my matrix X, and this is my matrix W. And if I do x times w, now I'm going to have one column. So X is a column of a matrix with 2 columns, okay? This is n by 2, and I'm multiplying it by the W matrix, which is 1 column, 2 values, right? So the result is going to be just 1 column. This is 1 column of values. But it's going to be, W0 times 1 plus W1 times X1. And so the first row will be basically our prediction for X1. And the second row is our prediction for X2, so on and so forth. So we have 1 column of values here. Whenever you do stuff with matrices, I strongly recommend that you write the dimensions underneath it, okay? Because matrices, like, in algebra, you can just do A times B times C, and it's no problem. You can mix them up, C times B times A, right? Because they're all scalars, they're all just 1 by 1 values. You can just multiply and rearrange them however you want. Matrices, you can't do that. The matrices have to work out. If you have 2 columns, the thing that you multiply with has to have 2 rows. Okay, that's how matrix algebra works. And so so here, X has n rows and 2 columns. W has 2 rows and 1 column. And therefore, the product is going to have n rows in 1 column, X times W. And this will help you to avoid making the mistake, do I write X times W or W times X, right? In regular old algebra, these are the same, okay? In linear algebra, like this doesn't work out, okay? And if you try to do this in R, you'll get different errors. So X in our data, if we go back to our Olympic data, we have 28 rows, okay, and in 2 columns. W is 2 rows, 1 column. I can do X times W, and the result is going to be 28 rows, 1 column. If I try to do W times X, okay, if I try to do W times X, I get an error. I get non-conformable arguments, right? And so when you're working in R and you're doing like the homework, you'll probably encounter this error at least one time, or it'll say non-conformable arguments, and it just means you're trying to multiply matrices where the dimensions don't line up, okay? Either you have them in the wrong order, okay, or the dimensions don't line up, right? Non-conformable arguments. So again, writing in your notation, putting the little dimensions underneath each of these things helps keep track of this. Okay, so then, so I have my column of predicted values, and then if I take T, my column of target values, I can get the column of residuals. The column of residuals will be just T minus XW, okay? Take the first target value, subtract out the first predicted value. That's going to be my first residual. Second target value minus my second predicted value. That's going to be my second residual. And so T minus XW is, again, just going to be 1 column, n rows by 1 column. And then if I do T minus XW transpose times T minus XW, right? So if I transpose it, then I have this row and a column. We can see that this is going to be, because when you do matrix multiplication, the summation is inherent to that multiplication process. We can see that T minus XW transpose, which looks like this, times T minus XW, the entire column. I'm doing this kind of across the row and down the column. We're going to get the summation of all of our residuals squared, right? So this is going to multiply, my first residual gets multiplied by the first residual, so I get the first residual squared. Second residual gets multiplied by the second residual, I get the second residual squared. And we're going to multiply them all, we add them up, so we get this. And then so if our loss function is the mean squared residual, okay, I have T minus XW transpose, which is going to be 1 by n, times T minus XW, which is n by 1. That's going to multiply it to 1 by 1. And then I'm dividing by n. This is a scalar value. So the result is just a scalar value. Okay, so this is our thing. Okay, so I can also expand this. T minus XW transpose times T minus XW. Basically, I'm going to expand this out, okay? And so this is still this is my loss function. This is 1 by 1, and this is all the multiplication expanded out. Let me just make sure I'm on track for time. Oh, and before I forget, let me give you your third answer. Third answer today is the letter A. A as an apple. A as an apple is your third answer. Okay, so I got T minus XW transpose, T minus XW. So matrix or linear algebra rules, when you transpose, the transpose of a sum is just the sum of the transposes. So I get T transpose minus XW. But then the transpose of a product is the transposes but multiplied in the reverse order, right? So XW transpose becomes W transpose times X transpose. Okay, so now I'm going to do T transpose minus W transpose X transpose times T minus XW. First, outer, inner, last, I get T transpose T, then T transpose XW, then W transpose X transpose T, and then whatever, W transpose X times W, okay? All of these, again, you can check I wrote all of the dimensions underneath. All of these multiply to be 1 by 1s, okay? I got a 1 by n times an n by 2 times a 2 by 1. All of these multiply out to be 1 by 1s, which is what we want. We want a scalar value, okay? I can combine T transpose XW with W transpose X transpose T because these are transposes of each other and they are scalar values. Okay, so I think I have that on the next slide, but basically if you transpose this, you will get this, and they are scalar values, so I can just add them together. You can't always just add the transpose with itself. But in this case, with the scalar value, you can. So now I get this. T transpose T, 2 times W transpose X transpose T plus W transpose X transpose X W. Okay. And then I'll multiply by 1 over n. This is our loss function expanded out. Okay. And now what do we want to do? We want to find the minimum of this. So we will do this using vector-based calculus. Okay. So just like before, we're going to take the kind of like quote derivative, the gradient of this with respect to with respect to W. Okay. Basically take the derivative, set it equal to 0, and solve. And that's where we're going to find the value that minimizes our loss function. Okay. So we'll do vector-based calculus. So definition of the derivative. One way to define the derivative is basically the limit as h goes to 0. Right, like if you think back to your early days of calculus, first you learn limits, then you learn like derivatives. Okay, and so basically we're saying like, okay, if I added a little h to x here, and I ask what's the value of the function of x plus h, and then I take the difference with f of x, and I shrink that little h0 down to 0, basically you get, the derivative, the slope of the tangent line there, okay? And so f prime is this. And you can kind of rearrange terms, and you can say, okay, our derivative f prime is the value such that, this equation, this limit holds, so that the limit as h goes to 0 of this thing, okay? And when we do the same thing with vectors, okay, this is kind of the multivariate equivalent of the derivative, which we call the gradient, okay? So we have a function where the inputs is a vector, right? A vector of length n, but the output is just one number. It's a scalar value. It's the loss function, just the sum of squared values, okay? And so the gradient of the function, okay, this upside down triangle is called nabla, okay? Nabla f, this is the gradient. Okay, it's kind of like the multi-dimensional, multivariate version of the derivative, and it tells us basically how the function changes with respect to each component of the vector, and it's going to satisfy basically where the norm of this thing, f of x plus h minus f of x minus nabla f of x times h, goes to 0. And so you can see kind of, it's just like I've taken all of these terms and just made them like vector versions of it. Okay, and basically it just boils down to the gradient is the vector of partial derivatives. Okay, so if your vector, you're trying to find the gradient with respect to a particular vector, your vector has n terms in it, the gradient of the function with respect to that vector is going to be a vector with n terms in it, where each component is the partial derivative. We're getting the partial derivative of f with respect to w1, partial derivative of f with respect to w2, so on and so forth, until we get the partial derivative of f with respect to the nth term in w. So that's basically what the gradient boils down to. Okay, so what did I write? Like the derivative, the gradient represents the slope of the tangent of the graph of the function. More precisely, the gradient points in the direction of the greatest rate of increase of the function, and its magnitude is the slope of the graph in that direction. Okay, yes. All right, so these are some useful gradient relationships, okay? So the gradient, one thing to keep in mind is the gradient will always have the same dimensions as the input vector. Okay, so here our vector w is length 2 because it's slope and intercept, and our x is also length 2. We have a constant 1 with x of n, but this can, in all of these examples, these are 2x1 matrices, but this can be expanded, right? You can have a vector w with like 5 terms in it. Or something like that, okay? And the result will basically be the same. So we have a function, all of these, the values of the function have to be scalar values. They all have to be 1 by 1. So you can have W transpose X, which will result in a 1 by 1. X transpose W will result in a 1 by 1. W transpose W will result in 1 by 1. And then W transpose CW, C is some matrix, square matrix, will also result in a 1 by 1. And then if you take the gradient of this, W transpose X with respect to W, you get X. If you take the gradient of this with respect to W here, you'll also get X. With respect to W, you get 2W. And with respect to W here, you get 2 times C times W, okay? And you can, I have the derivative example of this, right? So W is W1 and W2, and X is X1 and X2. W transpose X is W1X1 plus W2X2, W2X2, all right? And so the gradient of this, we can say what is the partial derivative with respect to W1 is the first component, and the partial derivative of this with respect to the W2 is our second component. And so the partial derivative of this with respect to W1 is just going to be X1. We have W1 times X1, so derivative of this is just going to be X1. There's no W1 term, so that zeroes out. Okay, so this just becomes X1. And then what's the partial derivative of this thing with respect to X2? It just boils down, with respect to W2, it just boils down to X2. There's no W term here, so that zeroes out. So this boils down to just X1 and X2. And that's just our vector X, okay? Our vector X. I have the transpose here because it's technically going to be a column, okay? But that's what we have here, okay? So that's just one of the relations. Here's another one. If you do W transpose W, okay, you'll get W1 squared and W2 squared plus W2 squared. What's the derivative of this with respect to W1? You'll get 2W. What's 2W1? Now what's the derivative of this with respect to W2? You'll get 2W2. So you'll get 2W1 and 2W2, and that's equal to just 2W. Okay, so that's so these are just some of our different relations, and you can look at the other ones on your own time. So so here we are, and we earlier we expanded out all of the loss function in matrix notation into back here. Let me go back to here. We have basically T transpose T to W transpose X transpose, we have this whole thing. And I just distributed the 1 over n over the 3 terms here. So, so here we are. And now we want to take, okay, what is the gradient of the loss function with respect to W? Okay, we'll take the gradient of this with respect to W. So this whole thing zeroes out. Okay, so remember W is a 2 by 1 matrix, so the gradient of the gradient has to also be 2 by 1. So the gradient of this is 0. Gradient of W transpose times this thing, this is basically just a vector. We just get that term, okay? And then the gradient of this is kind of in the form X transpose X. This is going to be a symmetric matrix C right here. So it's basically W transpose times C times W, and so that's going to give me 2 times this, okay? So, so here I have my gradient. It is equal to this, negative 2 over n, X transpose T, plus 2n X transpose XW, okay? And now we're going to set this equal to 0, and we're going to solve for W, okay? We're going to set the gradient equal to 0 and solve for W. So here I have this. I'm going to multiply both. I'm going to add, I guess, 2 over n X transpose T to both sides. And so I get, and then I'm going to multiply both sides by n over 2. So I get X transpose T is equal to X transpose XW. And now I want to get W all by itself, okay? There's no such thing as division in linear algebra, okay? You can't divide matrices. But you can multiply by inverse matrices, okay? So to isolate W by itself over here, I'm going to multiply both sides by the inverse matrix of X transpose X, okay? So I'm going to multiply this by X transpose X inverse. And X transpose X inverse times X transpose X will give me the identity matrix, and that the right-hand side will just boil down to W. Okay. The left-hand side, I have just X transpose X inverse. Okay. X transpose X inverse times X transpose T. Here I've written all of the dimensions underneath. X transpose X is going to be a 2 by 2, and the inverse of X transpose X will also be 2 by 2. Okay, so inverting the matrix keeps the same dimensions, right? So you have a square matrix, and the inverse is also the square matrix of the same size, because they have to multiply out to an identity matrix of the same dimensions. So anyway, this is a 2 by 2 matrix. This is going to be 2 by n, and this is multiplied by n by 1. X transpose is 2 by n, t is n by 1. And so this whole thing multiplies to 2 by 1, and that indeed is what we want. Okay, so the W, the solution to this, where the gradient is equal to 0, okay, is going to be X transpose X inverse times X transpose T. And again, if you've taken Stats 100C, I think this is a very familiar result in terms of the solution to a linear model, okay? And so that's what we have. The value of W that's going to minimize the ordinary least squares regression function is the value of W such that the gradient of the loss function is equal to 0. And that's what we worked through here, is going to be this. X transpose X inverse times X transpose T. And so this is a result that's going to be handy as we move forward. Well, I guess I got through my slides a little bit faster than I anticipated. But okay, so that's, oh wait, I have to give you, how many answers did I give you? 3. Okay, let me give you your 4th answer for today's lecture review quiz, and that's the letter C. C as in cat. C as in cat is our 4th answer for that. Huh? Yeah. Okay, so that is it. So we'll wrap things up here. Again, on Thursday, I have to catch an airplane, so I can't. So I'm not going to be. I'm not going to be here in Thursday. I'll do my morning class, but then right after the morning class, I got to drive over to the airport. So so I'll do that. So I'm going to record. I guess our next lecture on video, and I'll post the video of that. Okay. All right. We'll wrap things up here. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you, I guess, next week.